You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
As far as I'm concerned, Hamilton's Toronto. I know they're going to hate that.
Oh my God! Now the world just blew up. Hamilton is Toronto. That's the title of the podcast.
Thanks for that.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do.
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty.
Hunters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable.
Ready, set, hunt.
And we are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. It's Brazilian Ty and Travis Currah. And, of course, the big news is the Brexit deal from Theresa May ends up getting shut down, and it looks like there's going to be a no-confidence motion getting put to the table. So that's our big news we got to talk about today, Ty.
Oh, I didn't know we were on CPAC.
It's the Two and Out World Politics podcast.
Oh, this should be fun. Said no one ever.
Okay.
If I keep eating like I have it in camp, I'm going to look like Mike Duffy. So
let's get to the meat and potatoes of this thing.
In the Huddle with Currah and Ty on the Two and Out podcast.
All right, so a lot of things going on this offseason.
Are you still laughing about my Mike Duffy comment?
I'm giggling about it. I think that was a good one.
Some of my best work.
What if we did a political? No, why did I even bring that up, dude?
Let's not do that.
If you had a political podcast, you would become. I'm not even going to say it. You would have a legion of haters and fans.
Yeah, that's fair to say. We'll just leave it at that.
Because you say things that everybody thinks. That's all I'm going to say, too.
Because I'm not going to pussyfoot around it.
Okay, I'm exiting off that Brexit crap. Chris Jones has his own Brexit from Saskatchewan and is apparently heading to Cleveland to become their senior defensive specialist. Now, this whole thing sounds completely made up, and I know a lot has gone on in the CFL since we last did a podcast. Adam Bighill signs an extension in Winnipeg, but we're just going to focus on the Chris Jones stuff today and give our immediate reaction, which sometimes is absolutely a terrible idea, because when you give your immediate reaction, you haven't had time to think about anything, and you end up sounding like an idiot, even a day later. But we are okay with sounding like idiots, so this is where we are today. Apparently, this all came about very quickly. Within the last 48 hours or so, with the Browns ended up contacting Jones, and then the interview happening. Naylor said it actually happened Tuesday morning, the day that we are talking. And this whole thing was first reported by CFL News on Twitter, which is an incredible Twitter account. The guy broke the story, and kudos to him for being the first one on this, because it was the biggest story, obviously, of the day and maybe of the offseason so far, until we hear what's going on with the quarterbacks. But that's what they say. What they say is that this all came about very quickly, but was it even the new year yet when it was reported that NFL teams were looking at Chris Jones as a possible candidate?
I don't even think. I think it was well before New Year's that this came up. We've seen what he's done with the defense in Saskatchewan, and there are a number of teams in the NFL that their defense is subpar, would be a polite way to put it. I wouldn't be surprised if he used it as leverage in negotiating his extension that he signed a couple weeks ago or last week.
Yeah, and I guess, it was just last week that he actually had an out clause on his contract that said, hey, yeah, if I get an NFL opportunity, I am going to take it. And why wouldn't he? We support when players do it all the time. Mm-hmm. Now we got to support when a coach gets the opportunity. So Jones won a Grey Cup in Montreal in 2002. He was their defensive line coach. He was the DC in Calgary when they won it in 2008. He was the DC in Toronto when they won it in 2012. And he was the HC in Edmonton when they won it in 2015. So he has won everywhere he's been, well, except for Saskatchewan.
Yeah, let's twist that knife a little more.
So
I said it last week though. Like, you know, loyalty to Chris Jones means absolutely nothing. So I mean, nobody should be surprised that, you know, he wasn't living up to his full contract extension. I wasn't surprised. I was surprised it was this quick, but I wasn't surprised that he was gone.
Well, you know what? Everybody craps on him about the loyalty factor. But, I mean, the guy grew up in, Tennessee? He didn't grow up dreaming of winning Grey Cups for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. No,
but, I mean, and I'm not saying that, you know, players owe franchises anything, and neither do coaches. I mean, you got to look at it as your own. You got to make a living, and if there's a better opportunity somewhere else, you got to take it. But like when you asked me last week and you said, well, how do you feel about this? I'm like, I'm indifferent because I know he's not going to be here for that full extension. I wasn't expecting it to be a week later. But he doesn't he doesn't owe the Riders anything. And the Riders don't owe him anything because now he's gone. But I mean, he got a better opportunity. I can't fault the guy for taking it. It just sucks that, you know, he might be able to make that defense in Cleveland really good. They've got some pieces, and that does not bode well for my Pittsburgh Steelers.
And you know what? That's the part that surprises me. And, you know, I've probably said this 50 times since we started doing this podcast, but it was the timing. If this happened in December, I don't think I really would have been all that surprised. If it happened a week after the report came out saying that, hey, NFL teams are looking at Chris Jones and possibly bringing him in. But yeah. I guess I thought that the ship kind of sailed on this offseason, and then he was just committed to this season and was going to maybe try again in the offseason next year or the year after that. But then a week after, he says we have unfinished business to tend to in Saskatchewan, and then the opportunity comes. That's the part that surprised me.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, I don't know a lot of coaching jobs that are hired spur of the moment in professional sports. There's a process that teams go through, you know, from, you know, first contacting the guy and then setting up an interview and interviewing and getting the offer in. It's just, it looks super shady that it was only a week after he signed the extension. I have a feeling that I don't believe for a second that it all came together this morning. That just seems too quick to me. Although, coming from the Cleveland Browns, not surprising if that is the truth. But yeah, like you said, it looks super shady that it was the week after. If this would have happened in December, everybody would have been like, well, yeah, well, whatever. Like, he's moving into the last year of a contract, not a big deal. You know, he's got an opportunity, but to sign an extension and a week later renege on it looks really bad.
Now, I guess you have to talk about it. There is a segment in Saskatchewan that is going to say, good riddance. And it's not a small...
Who would say that? I don't know anybody who thinks that.
And I don't think it's a small portion of Rider Nation at all, but just look at the facts. His first year, they went 5-13. 2017, they went 10-8. And then this past year, they went 12-6. They improved every single year. And if you just go back to the dumpster fire that the Riders were when he took over after a 3-15 season in which Corey Chamberlain started the season 0-9, he stripped the team right to the bone. And I know that they let go John Chick and Weston Dressler and Darian Durant, and all of that happened. But he put the team where they are today. Now, I really think that this could have a super negative effect on the team heading into 2019. There are a lot of players that love playing for Chris Jones. And I know there are fans that probably see it and they say, what? You know, how can guys love playing for this guy? But they do. He has his guys. Willie Jefferson has only played for Chris Jones in the Canadian Football League. So what does this do for the Riders as they head into free agency next month?
I think getting a coach is going to be the foremost thing on the front office's mind, because you don't want to start signing players. I know Toronto went through the draft and free agency without a GM and a head coach, and they somehow won the Grey Cup. But with the personnel that Saskatchewan has right now, all that's because of Chris Jones and his system. If a new coach is going to bring in a new system, and that might mean these guys don't fit, or maybe he's able to make these guys fit. Guys like Willie Jefferson and Charleston Hughes, guys like that, pretty easy to find a spot for them. When it comes to free agency, to get those guys in, you want some continuity and a base point where these guys know what is going to be going on with their position, whether or not they're going to be, playing 90% of the snaps, or they're going to be on a rotation. And without a head coach, it's really hard to get us to that. And it's going to be hard for guys to want to commit before a head coach gets hired.
Before we talk about possible replacements for Mr. Jones, saying thank you to, is that a song by the Counting Crows?
Mr. Jones, yes.
It is.
Or you can go Dr. Jones by Aqua, whatever one you want to do.
There we go. I don't think he's a doctor yet, though. Not yet. We say thank you to ATB Financial today and the branch for all arts and culture. And this is awesome because, you know what, musicians and basically any kind of artists, they don't have a regular paycheck like you and me. They can't just look in the bank on the 15th and the 30th and say, hey, look at that, I got a paycheck coming in. So the ATB created the branch for arts and culture, and that is what it's all about. They know that artists don't live by the rules or standard pay schedules or things like that, so they help you out with creative banking so you don't have to worry about your checking account. It is also a networking and career development hub. Sometimes it's not what you know, it is who you know. That's exactly what happened with Chris Jones. He's got connections in Cleveland that he's worked with before, so look at that. He's going to go work with the Browns. They have a branch for arts and culture in Edmonton and Calgary that also serve as performance venues for creators, by creators. Check out and get more information at atb.com/thebranch. That's atb.com/thebranch. We're kind of in a unique point with this Chris Jones thing because there are actually some names out there that would make a suitable replacement. There is a different wrinkle that is added to this because of the non-football ops cap that happens with this thing. I believe Jones is going to be off the books. And if he wasn't, that would be a big problem for the Riders because it's like a $600,000 salary, and that's right around half or a third of the entire cap. And that's...
But if that became an issue, then everybody would forget that they still don't have a viable starting quarterback.
Yeah. So now they're without a head coach and a quarterback under contract. So it's almost square one for the Rough Riders all over again. It looks like Jeremy O'Day is going to step into the GM role. CFL News also reported that. But where do we go from here? Because Jones played head coach. He played defensive coordinator. So there are a lot of people, rallying to get Paul LaPolice into town, and they're rallying to get Mark Trestman into town. I don't know if that is realistic with their skill sets, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if Tresson wants to come into a rebuild. He had Calvillo in Montreal already established. He had Ricky Ray in Toronto already established as a starter. I've yet to see him mold a young quarterback. After Calvillo was done, he was not much long after in Montreal, and he didn't last. He only lasted 2 seasons in Toronto, one with Ricky Ray and one with McLeod Bethel-Thompson and James Franklin, and it just nothing seemed to click with those young quarterbacks. So I don't know if that would be the best option. Lapo's been in Saskatchewan before. Everybody's going to remember him throwing his headset down after the first Grey Cup against Montreal. I don't know if he'd want to leave Winnipeg. I just think the situation right now in Saskatchewan with the quarterback situation, what it is not ideal for a lot of head coaching prospects in this league.
Are we kind of starting from scratch in Regina then?
I don't know if it's from scratch, but the coach or whoever they're going to find, I think is going to have an idea of what he's going to want for his quarterback, and whether or not that's the guys that we already have, be it Brandon Brage and work with him, or if he's going to want to go out and get a big name. It's not necessarily starting from scratch in the sense that you're tearing it down and building the offense from nothing. There's guys out there that you can go get, but it's going to be a hard sell unless that coach can have the quarterback he wants to start the season.
I'd like to see Mike Riley get offered the position as offensive coordinator and head coach and quarterback, because then you could split his salary between the
Reg Dunlop style.
Yeah, the player coach.
Yeah, who owned the Chiefs? Yeah. Good.
Like, come on, there's something to this, isn't there?
I'm pretty sure that the CFL would be like, no, that's circumventing the cap, and they'd count both of it. They'd count the full number against both instead of letting.
Oh, that's shady, man. Because if he's actually the OC,
that's an Ambrosi move. That's an Ambrosi move for sure. Keeping costs down all over the board.
So who are some other candidates? Craig Dickinson has been talked about, and I feel like he's been talked about for head coaching positions for the past few years. He was brought up on the BC job, came available. He is a defensive guy, so he might be able to do both jobs, DC and HC. Of course, let go was Mike Benavides out of Edmonton. Could he do the head coach DC job? How about Wally Buono?
Okay, if they get Wally Buono, they're going 18-0.
Okay, knowing what you know now, it is January 15th. What's the early over-under for Saskatchewan's win total? I had a Bomber fan tell me that they're winning 4 games in 2019.
8.5, and I think I take the under. I put it at 8.5 because I know Rider Nation, and they think they can win every game, so I'm going to rely on them to boost the line a little bit, and I can drop it down after I've already made the money.
So is Darian Durant going to come back?
Oh my, that'd be the greatest story the CFL has ever seen.
So Rob Vanstone for the Regina Leader Post ended up tweeting, Chris Jones' tenure in Saskatchewan can be described as moderately successful.
Well, yeah, okay.
I mean, Durant had a Grey Cup.
Yep. He won a playoff game.
Yeah. Hey, they were 5 seconds away from the Grey Cup.
Yeah, and last year they only lost the West Semi by 1 without a quarterback. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that defense he built in Saskatchewan, there's no argument. It was electric. It was the only reason they were in games because they outscored Zach Collaros and Brandon Brage together throughout the year. But yeah, moderately successful. That's fair. 5, 10, 12. It's only 27 wins in 3 years. You're averaging 9-9. So playing 500 football throughout his tenure in Saskatchewan. It's not ideal, not terrible. Playoffs the last 2 years, but nothing that really stands out other than that defense last year.
That was maybe my favorite part about Chris Jones being in the CFL and being a head coach in general. And for the Riders anyway, he sort of added an attitude to the team. And the Riders have always, and their fans too, have always wanted to be the nice guy. And if we lose, it's okay if we're classy and we lose with grace. But Jones,
let's not paint them all with the same brush.
But Jones added an attitude to the Riders that they really haven't had. And I like the intensity that Jones added to games with Calgary and games with Edmonton because they were just so damn fun to watch. But, I mean, if Dickinson takes over, we got the brother versus brother matchup, Calgary versus Saskatchewan, and that's fun too.
The only thing wrong with that is that when you match up the GMs, it's not even a close match.
Well, and you know what? They've had O'Day in the waiting for a really long time. So he has learned and been in that organization for, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like he played there from 99 to 2010. So he's been in this organization for almost 20 years. I think it's natural that they go to him, and he's learned from some interesting,
to say the least,
some interesting, let's say,
characters.
Yeah.
Well, we'll use that word.
But what is it about Saskatchewan that just breeds this chaos? And Joel Gasson, 3 Down Nation, wrote a story about it. I don't know why the news is always this crazy in Regina. I don't get it.
They're the only game in town. Every other CFL franchise has either everybody but
Hamilton.
Hamilton has an NHL team. Hamilton is not like, I mean, I as far as I'm concerned, Hamilton's Toronto. Like, I know they're going to hate that. I mean, so
oh my God! Now the world just blew up. Hamilton is man. Toronto. That's the title of the podcast.
Like, thanks for that. But like, there's just so like in Hamilton. I mean, Toronto is not that far. You still have the Sabres across the lake. Like, you're in an area where there's lots of sports, lots of big sports. Everywhere else has the NHL. It's just in Saskatchewan. If it's not the Riders, you got the Pats. Just up the road with the Blades. You get all the WHL teams. They don't hold a candle to the following that the Riders have, and people want to know everything there is about this team at all times, and they want it at their fingertips. And the media there knows that, and they feel. I think the media feels the pressure to try to get stuff out. Whether or not they're trying to find stories or stories fall in their laps is another thing. But I think it's so crazy because it's the only game in town, and you're just inundated with it, and it seems crazy. But for Rider fans and people who are diehard, it's almost like they still can't get enough of it.
Yeah, like I'm trying to imagine if the whole Jim Pop, Mark Trestman, MLSE thing happened in Saskatchewan instead of Toronto. Like, there would probably be all sorts of rumors and things.
Albert Street would have been shut down. They would have had a 4-day parade.
Yeah, like if stuff happened like that, I guess maybe things are just magnified when they're under the microscope and they're in the fishbowl.
Well, and it doesn't matter where you're in Saskatchewan, you can see Mosaic Stadium, right? So, Well,
I guess we sit here and we wait for Chris Jones's replacement. And I guess that does show when you hire a guy to do 5 jobs, all of a sudden you got to replace 5 jobs when the guy leaves. And there are
and under a cap.
Yeah, because they put the eggs in the Jones basket and gave him all the power, and he put the team where they are today at 12-6 last year, and losing in the Western semifinal with no quarterback. It was such a anomaly of a season, but now we got guys trying to pick up the pieces and pick up where he left off, and I think they might lose a few free agents, just like Edmonton did when Jones went to Regina.
Oh, yeah. Well, Edmonton also lost a lot of free agents this year without Jones leading. So, there's going to be guys that have, like you said, Willie Jefferson's only played for Chris Jones, so that's going to be an issue for sure. Guys have come in, promised things under Chris Jones, and he may have delivered with position wise or playing time wise, and now that whole system's going to change, and whether or not guys are going to want to stick around or not is yet to be seen. When I played minor hockey, if I didn't get picked by the coach I wanted to, I wasn't happy. I can just imagine how it is when you don't have a say, and all of a sudden a new guy comes in and just changes everything, and it's your career that you're trying to take care of, and maybe you don't get the same opportunity. So it could be a big roster turnover, but at the same time, the guy that comes in, players might gravitate to him like they did Chris Jones, and we might not even have an issue.
Well, and those defensive players are there because they fit his system.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's like I said earlier. He brought all these guys in that fit into his system, and now with a new coach coming in, the system he's going to want to run with these guys is going to fit in. There's a couple guys that you're going to find spots for. It's not even a question. But the system of the defense you want to run, the schemes, whether or not you want to run rotations and what positions and all that stuff is going to be all up to the coach. And there's going to be promises that Chris Jones made that this guy's going to have to break, and it could piss a lot of guys off.
Who are you going to bet as the replacement?
Is it too late to pick the Vaughn Claybrooks? Or... I think they get Lapo out of Winnipeg.
Really?
Yeah, and my option B would be Benavides. As much as I don't know. All they need is I've never seen a soft zone defense lose a Grey Cup. So, but I think he would be my dark horse. But I think Lapo.
I think I'm going to put my money on somebody internal like Craig Dickinson. But I guess if they bring Lapo in, now would they fire McAdoo? There is a lot that has to go into this because Jones
I have no problem with them firing Stephen McAdoo.
Because Jones has his guys there in the coaching staff too. So, and the cap maybe means that those guys have to stay.
It could be quite the process of a rebuild.
Oh yeah,
not even on the field, on the sideline.
And we don't even have a CBA.
Wow, this is just great, isn't it?
Well, we do.
If you have any questions about the CBA or what's going on, just ask Derek Dennis on Twitter. He'll let you know.
I guess we do have a CBA. It just expires like the day before training camp, if you want to be technical. Perfect. I can't believe it's January 15th. And
would you drink milk today if it expired tomorrow?
Can we skip the season and just have crazy news come up nonstop? Because it's honestly less stressful as a fan. And then we could all just go to Calgary and have a big barbecue party for 4 days in November, and nobody wins the Grey Cup. There we go.
But we all win the Grey Cup.
We all win the Grey Cup. I like that. Any final words on Chris Jones?
I liked him for 2 weeks.
When?
Until that overtime game in Edmonton in 2015, when he decided to kick the field goal. Or when he decided to go for it instead of kicking the field goal, taking the points and forcing a second overtime. After that, I was done. So for me, it's been 2 years and a bit of just sheer agony, which I'm glad is now over.
Wow.
Hey, don't get me wrong. He built a hell of a team. I just hate his coaching.
So
as a GM, I would take 100 times over.
I'm sad he's going, but I get why he's going, so I'm not mad. Is there a truce here between Eskimo and Rider fans now?
Never.
Oh, man.
Except at west of us.
Yeah, I don't know. Those guys pick at me too, man.
Yeah, I'm getting really tired of being the bottom of the totem pole. Because it runs downhill, man.
It all runs downhill, and you're one of the shortest guys there.
Yep. Three things my grandpa told me, and he was a construction and plumber by trade. It was, don't chew your fingernails, runs downhill, paydays on Friday.
You don't chew your fingernails?
Oh, I chew them all the time. I don't know what it's saying. Oh, we have a 4-0 lead. I'm still nervous.
What's your grandpa's name?
Peter.
I like this guy.
I'm pretty sure you met him when he was still alive, yep.
Oh.
How do you hide an elephant in a cherry tree?
How?
Paint its toenails pink. Have you ever seen an elephant in a cherry tree?
No.
Well, it works then, doesn't it?
We are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. I really didn't think this episode was going to happen. We really didn't put anything together, but now you know what's happening with Chris Jones, and it looks like for the time being, CFL News saying that Jeremy O'Day is stepping in. So I'd like to say we'll talk to you next week, but who knows what's going to happen the rest of this week?
We might have to put out a Friday night show.
Yeah, we just might. And don't ruin my Friday night.
Yeah, because, my Friday night is just bumping Dean in bed at 9:30, watching Big Bang Theory.
Oh, I can't wait till that show's off TV.
It's syndicated. It'll never be off.
Damn. AlbertaPodcastNetwork.com to check out all the great shows. We were talking politics off the top of the show. So there are some political shows in the APN. How about the Dave Berta podcast? Dave and Ryan talk politics, policy, and events from an Edmontonian, Albertan, and Canadian perspective. So check out the Dave Berta podcast and all the other great shows at AlbertaPodcastNetwork.com. I'm Travis Currah. He's Brazilian Ty. We will talk to you in a week. In the meantime, Rider Nation, the sky's not falling, and the sun will come up tomorrow. Give us a rating and a review and a subscription on iTunes. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.